Hi everybody, welcome to the very first Supper Club of 2013-2014. It's the October Supper Club, and I know some of you are meeting together for the first time, and hope it's a good connection and a good chance to get to know each other. Others have been meeting for 3 or 4 years now. So, as you can tell, this is not Cindy Curley beside me. I have a guest. I thought we'd do something a little different this month. I've invited the Rabbi Adam Morris, who some of you will know. Adam has preached here before at Montview, and he's done a few other things around here, so welcome.
It's good to be here again.
Thank you.
It's kind of a second home, Montview.
Yes. For me. Before we get into what we're going to talk about, I want to give you 2 invitations. One, to be a fellowship host after church as a group, so think about that and maybe talk about that. We have that fellowship time right after church. We'd love to have you as a supper club host that, and it just means bring some snacks and things. You can talk to Diane Cooper in the office if you'd like to do that. And secondly, I want to invite you to come on October 20th as a group to our Strength Finder Luncheon. Now, you don't know what that is yet, but you will pretty soon.
Sounds impressive.
It sounds very, we have a lot of strengths here. So, actually, we have no strengths. We're finding those strengths. We're looking for strengths is the idea. And this will be a great way to get to know each other better, because you'll take an online kind of evaluation for your strengths and you can talk about them at this luncheon. So just keep those in mind. I won't spend much time here today. For today, what I'm really excited about is to talk about our theme of call with Adam and talk about the Jewish perspective on this. Adam and I get together once in a while, and we did the other day, and I said, what do you, well, tell them what happened when you told your staff what you were going to do today.
So I was came in this morning and talking about what I was doing today and told them what I was doing. They said, oh, what are you talking about? And I said, the Jewish idea of call. And there was silence in the office. And someone said, you mean like a phone call? I said, no. And someone else said, you mean like a birth call? I said, no, it's... And someone said, oh, you mean like call from...
Oh, they got it. Good.
And eventually they got it, but...
But you really don't have... I mean, this is what was interesting.
Yes.
It's not the same anyway.
It is not the same. When Jews hear that, they would say, well, that sounds very Christian.
Yeah.
And it's not language that we use. So before I can, I guess, define it, I need you to tell me when you say
I'll
call,
give you my...
What do you mean?
My 1-minute version of it. We've talked a lot around here around big C and little c call. So in other words... there's big decisions to make in life, and maybe not even a decision, but something that's coming to you that's going to change your life, that God is calling you to. Call used to be specific to ministers, and that there's a very specific understanding of that word. More in recent years, we've really tried to broaden that and set free the priesthood of all believers, a phrase we use in the Protestant tradition, that we're all called to things. And so sometimes it's a big C call, like your profession, or other things. But this fall we've been playing with little C call too, as being just as important. Do you coach your child's soccer team? Do you say yes or no to this invitation in life? It's about how we live our lives, how we're listening for God's voice to us. So, given that kind of really basic framework, we talked briefly about how you make decisions, or how involved is God in the decisions we make. And in the Jewish faith, how would you say that you...
So let me give you your 2 C's, the big C and little c, 2 other C's,
all right,
which are the closest. They're not the same. I think we're kind of talking about the same thing, but we get to it in a different way.
Okay.
The first C is commandment. In Judaism, or in Hebrew, mitzvot, commandments.
Mitzvot,
Plural, mitzvah, singular.
Mitzvah.
So
okay.
If I go back and forth, you'll know what I'm talking about. So there's this idea actually outlined in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses, from Genesis to Deuteronomy, are 613 mitzvot, commandments.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the basis of kind of what our obligations are, what we're supposed to do. A lot of them are hard to follow nowadays because they have to do with the sacrificial cult back in the temple in Jerusalem. But a lot of them are ritual or moral and ethical, and I think that's our guideline, that's our map as to how we're figuring out what God wants for us.
Okay.
The other C is covenant. And the Hebrew word for that is brit. Because I think there's a sense, when the world was created, from a Jewish perspective, it was not finished. God created human beings in order so we can be in partnership, in covenant with God, to get this work done. And so in this partnership, so between this idea of mitzvot, so we have these guidelines, this idea of brit, of covenant, is that, okay, here's our guidelines, we're part of this partnership, go do the work. And just like any partner, you have a partner so that you can trust them to go do what they need to do. If you had a partner who you need to check back with all the time,
Right.
the work won't get done, and why have that partner?
Right.
And so I think there's that element of it as well. But even though I'm saying out loud, I hate to give the impression that Jews as a whole don't really think that God can be involved in each moment. But I don't think there's this sense of every moment looking for, okay, well, what am I called to do in this moment?
Right. It does name a danger for Christians of feeling like there is some plan and I need to keep checking in to make sure I'm hearing the call, I'm hearing the voice, so that I don't get off, as if there's only one path, it's God's path, and my job is to just keep checking in, that I'm not a co-creator. We do have in Christian theology, it's often called process theology. I don't know if we've ever talked about this. I have a lot of sympathy for process theology, and as the name implies, the sense that life and creation is in process. We are in the process, we are co-creators with God, they use that language. And in that sense, a lot more autonomy and responsibility. What I love about the Jewish tradition's emphasis here is the sense of responsibility on the human in this. It just feels right to balance that.
I think so. And I don't want to give the impression of kind of a rigidity with these commandments, because there's heaps of interpretation. I mean, forget ritual things. Remember the stranger because you two were strangers in the land of Egypt. Well, that's a mitzvah. That's a commandment. But what does that mean in any moment?
Right.
You have many people look at the same moment and they may feel called, if I can borrow that word, to respond differently to a moment as to how they interpret that commandment.
Okay. So how do you make decisions, Adam? If you're, it's one thing to say, well, I have my part in this co-creation and I don't need to check in with God, which I think that feels right. And yet, as you said, to imply that God is not a part of all of life and a part of, therefore, all decisions in some way, doesn't feel maybe quite right either. So just to be really practical with people, what do you do? I mean, let's just jump right to there since we don't have a lot of time.
Okay.
What do you do when you've got a big decision or important decision?
Before I get to me, I mean, I think decisions don't come in a vacuum. There's the life I live, and the practices, or whether they be religious or not, that I'm doing intellectually, spiritually, so that I have those muscles toned so that when I have an important decision to make, I can make those. There's also a part of me in the book of Genesis. We're taught that God created the human being, B'Tselem Elohim, which means in God's image. So there is this divinity within each of us that is of us. And so when we are doing anything, we have the potential to be godly.
To touch that place.
Yeah. And so what it is for each of us is to take both those elements and have those be most prominent to make that decision. So for me personally, it's getting to that calm, quiet place where I can access that clarity and see and make that decision from that.
What was the name for God you told me that is place or something?
There are many names for God in the Jewish tradition. My favorite is called Hamakom, which means the place.
The place.
Which to me fits so nicely into this idea, is that when you are in your place, not just physically but existentially, spiritually, you know where you fit. If you know where you fit, decisions flow nicely from there.
I think we're not so far apart in that. There's, for us, also that sense of, particularly the sense of needing to you need to be prepared. You need to do your work ahead of time if you're going to hope to hear clearly and listen well to God. That's going to be important to be able to, you can't just not do your work and then expect to make good decisions. And I'm finding that this whole fall around this theme of call is much more about how we are in the world, as opposed to this sense that God is sending us signals that we need to listen better for. It's a part of a long-term commitment to being in the world in a different way. And that's when we make the best call decisions in life. We're already out of time. This went very fast. Thank you.
Can I come back?
You can come back. That was great. All right. Thanks, everybody.